panicked.
Live.
I panicked under the pressure.
The deep pressure.
Oh, yeah. Get them all out now. How now, brown cow? How now, brown cow?
Bro, that's a nice shirt that you're wearing, Los. It's a fucking dope shirt, man. I wish I was there seeing it in person.
It's one of my favorites. Here we go. 5, 4, 3. This week on the program, we are over the literal ice hump that is now known as Snowvid-21. Many of us were met with rolling outages and no water. Snow like that has not been seen in Texas something like 20 years. And in a world where we have to keep validating how good we really are and thus always on the lookout for a bad guy, we asked, no, demanded, who is to blame?
Los, hey, I think you got a filter turned on in the video settings.
Oh, can you hear me, Brandon?
Yeah, I hear you. I think it's a video filter.
I don't know how to. I'm prepared to go forward with the intro. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I see that.
I need an emergency exit.
This exit is for emergencies only.
Oh, I think I got it. That's right. Welcome to another episode of Emergency Exit Podcast. This is episode 193. Today is February 19th, 2021. It is again 10 on 10, Friday night, new time. Well, same time, new night, 10 on 10 in our floating tin can, far above the world. I'm Los, and you could follow me on Twitter at That's Right Los. And joining me, streaming live, is exactly David Aguilar, my man.
Pew, 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 pew.
And making sure we're streaming live is Brandon the Hard Hat Mitchell.
Hey,
That's right.
what's going on?
Last week we couldn't be with you. We were here ready to go, and we had one of the first outages, and it happened to be an internet outage. We could not stream live last week, unfortunately, and we had to resort to playing a rerun. So that being said, we had a lot of topical information and topical stories to talk about, which are no longer topical. I mean, it seems like just 2 days go by. I mean, we were going to talk about impeachment, and a week later, it's irrelevant. Like, it doesn't even matter anymore. So we'll talk about both sides of the spectrum, talking about the rolling blackouts in Texas. We'll also talk about the 8 new propositions coming to us in May. We will do. We'll talk about Ted Cruz taking off during the Snowvid. We'll take a look at the Austin Strong Mayor that's actually going to be up for voting. We'll talk about what that is. We'll talk about people getting fired for not taking the COVID vaccine, which is weird. We'll talk about Gorilla Glue Girl. Maybe have some time for fact checking, the check factors.
Sounded like you said fact checking.
The check factors. And maybe get into Gina Carano, and probably definitely not get into Cuomo. But, all that saying, we have to do... We were supposed to be finished with this by now, but we have 2 more weeks left of the Brew Order Tournament of Beer, so let's do it.
It's the Brew World.
All right. I could have just dum. Hey, man, when we do a show live, things happen.
So many more elements at play right now.
And, eventually we'll probably get back into the Austin Public Studios, but we have a good setup here. Pro stuff. But that being said, we've got the Brew World Order Tournament of Beers. This week we are doing Austin Amber by Independence Brewery versus Peacemaker by Austin Beer Works. Now, these are beers we've had. They made it all the way to the very, the semifinals. And then next week is going to be the final, right? So I guess it's the finals. And then you get in. No, it's the semifinals because there'll be 2 more left. It's odd. But what we got here are 2 red solo cups, one labeled B, one labeled A. And we will drink these one at a time and rate them on a scale of 1 to 5. That's right. But I think what we're going to do is do, your taste. You're going to consider drinkability. And what was the last one? It was taste,
mouthfeel?
drinkability, and mouthfeel.
Mouthfeel, yeah.
Just general likeness of it. And so we'll do that. We will figure out who's going to win this one. We have a tiebreaker. David did not have the beers, so it's going to be me. It's going to be me in the hard hat drinking these beers. So without further ado, let's cue that triumphant music. For the last 4 years. I'm just kidding. So I'm going to drink B first. This one's my B. It's a hoppy ale. Bit malty. All right, so the taste is good, like 4.5. Drinkability, I couldn't chug it. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but would I keep drinking this? Yeah, it's a solid beer, so I'd give it a good 4. Mouthfeel, I don't know about the mouthfeel. It's okay. Maybe let's give it a good old 2.5. So what is that? 4.5. That's 9 and 2.5. So that's 11.5. All right, here's B. Here's A. Now, this one's more maltier. The taste is good. I give it a solid 4.5. Drinkability, same. It's not crazy drinkable. 3. And mouth feels good. So, yeah, I've got an answer. Brandon, have you tasted both of the beers?
I have, and I've already made up my mind.
All right, I'm going to vote for A. What do you vote for?
Voting for A. There is something. They both are really good beers. They're very drinkable. They both feel good in your mouth. They've got a lot there. I think A has just got a little bit more going on for it. There's just a little more of the unknown right there on just beyond the reach of your taste buds. Something to just figure out and get to.
I definitely see what you're talking about. Yeah,
there's just a little more there.
All right, so we are at a gridlock.
Yeah, we are both in agreement on A, and A is the Austin Amber.
Oh, we're both saying that it's good. Oh, great. Austin Amber. Beat Peacemaker.
I
kind of
agree.
unexpected, honestly.
Really? Oh, yeah, I can see that they're definitely different colors, and Austin Amber definitely took it. My goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Austin Amber!
Yeah. Dude, I agree with that. 100%.
You agree with that? You would have picked that as well?
I feel like I would have picked the Austin Amber because I've really, really enjoyed that beer every time we've drank it.
It has been really good. It beat. In my opinion, it did not beat, but obviously in the tournament, it beat my favorite Thirsty Goat.
True.
In a tiebreaker, by the way. But we have finally made it to the finals. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. And they're both Independence Brewery, by the way.
No.
So we've got Brandon's ultimate favorite, Power and Light. And going up against it is Austin Amber. Independence Brewery, you are making wonderful beers, and they're doing great in our tournament. So either way, you guys already won Independence Brewery. But which one will it be? We will be back next week with the Brew World Order Tournament of Beer.
Wow.
It's the Brew World. It's the Brew World.
All right,
get it.
Let's roll that bonsai footage. Well, we'll go into...
Straight in.
Yeah.
He doesn't ease his way on it. He just goes straight in.
Bonsai, yeah. All right, check this out, you guys. We're not doing bourbon today, although David is drinking Jameson, the
Bam.
Irish. It's not bourbon, but it's Irish whiskey this week. And
It's
we'll
delicious. It's delicious.
we'll probably air this on public access among other channels, but I may start a YouTube channel. This bonsai is featured in that video that we may or may not show in the next hour. But this is what's called a Carmona retusa, also known as a Fukin tea tree. We've had this on the show.
Yes,
This was actually featured. It actually looked more like straight up like this, but during the video, I show you how to take it out of its pot, combing out the roots, and getting it set up for a more permanent home. This will be in here for about 2-3 years, just growing in here. Hopefully it doesn't die. But as you see, I've made it into a what they call a cascade, where it's kind of dripping out of the pot. I also defoliated it, which means I took most of the big leaves off of it. And I say in the video why we do that. We want to take off some of the foliage in these tropical trees when we do a little bit of root pruning, because when you put it in its new pot, it's going to focus more on roots, and we don't want those roots to be we don't want the leaves to be getting fed by the roots. We want the roots to grow. So they'll grow for a little bit before you start seeing a pop in growth in your bonsais or in any plants. If you give it a prune, you got somebody yelling over there, bud?
Huh?
Anyways.
I'm sorry, am I in?
Yeah, you're in. Anyways, we're going to play that video maybe a little later. It's 13 minutes long. It's a fun one. And we'll keep going on with bonsai videos. Moving, I think the plan could be we do more fun radio show type stuff for the first hour, and then maybe the next hour we do the politics or whatever. Maybe we'll do that. We're still trying to work out a solid format for the show, because honestly, I'm getting just sick of like trying to keep up with politics all the time.
For real.
I'm getting, it was so much fun with Trump because, he was a fun guy to cover. But now it's everyone is covering for Biden. There are just so much spin by the media, like positive spin. We may talk about a fact check about how straight up Biden said during the town hall with Anderson Cooper that he didn't even have a vaccine when he got in office. And obviously, through other contexts that he was talking about, obviously there was one because he was saying there was like 10,000 or 10 million, 5 million doses like in a refrigerator ready to go. And by the media, he said that, like I think it was either after or before, he said we didn't even have a vaccine. But there are fact checkers saying, did he say this? And the fact checkers have to go, yes, he did say that. But obviously, it was obviously out of context. He probably, he didn't. But they don't talk about why would he just keep messing up like that? Why does he keep messing up? They just go, well, it was obviously a slip of the tongue. Obviously a little slip of the tongue, and he didn't mean to say it. But why would he keep saying these slip of tongue things, If we had Donald Trump saying, stand black, stand by, we're taking that as if he said, fucking Proud Boys, stand back and get ready to fucking fight, We take everything that Donald Trump says as if he's some master linguist, Oh, no, he said that. He does dog whistles, man. Oh, he says China virus, and that's racist. Oh, he fucking says, we're marching. It doesn't say we're going to do it peaceful. It's just the way that they'll fact check Donald Trump is not the way that they're trying to keep up with this administration, thus proving that they've got a bias, and it's fine to have a bias. Please, it's fine, but don't try to keep pretending that you are not biased. That you don't lean somewhere,
or be honest about your bias.
Yeah, be honest about it.
Don't try to shy away from it. Just say, okay, we're leaning this way, and we just want you to know that our perspective or our opinion is going to be skewed this way. Just be honest and be vulnerable with everybody, and let us know. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to hide it and say, oh, we're not biased, when you really are.
And at this point, those outlets that will say that they're unbiased, that they're neutral, we know what their bias is already, and so they will have. What I want to do now is I want to get into some news. I want to get into this whole rolling blackout situation we had. I mean, we had tons of people in Texas. We've had, first of all, if you guys don't know, and most likely you do, because most of our audience is in Texas, but and you might not even be watching now because you got a blackout. But Texas is pretty fucked, man. Now we don't want to show this. Okay, you're not showing it. Sorry, but yeah, we're gonna talk about Texas blackouts right now. Historic winter storm has killed at least 21 people and left millions of Texans without power. It spun killer tornadoes into the U.S. Southwest on Tuesday. This is from Reuters. And Bloomberg says, while ice has forced some turbines to shut down, just as a brutal cold wave drives record electricity demand, that's been the least significant factor in the blackouts, according to Dan Wolfen, a senior director of the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, or otherwise known as the ERCOT. And a lot of people are saying F ERCOT, which operates the state's power grid. They're not run by the state. It's independent, right? Is that right? And the main factors: frozen instruments at natural gas, coal, and even nuclear facilities as well. Now, I want to look at stories from the right, and I want to look at stories from the left, because Lord knows all my left friends, and that's like every one of them. I mean, all my friends are left. I don't think I have any other people that are on the right.
Yeah.
I have one for every one conservative friend of mine or a libertarian friend. I've got like 100 leftist friends or moderate leftists or whatever you want to call them. But either way, I want to grab some articles from the right and from the left. And this first one is coming from The Hill. And it's Stephen Moore. I'm just going to read a little bit of this right here. And while he pulls up the the actual article from there, buddy. But anyways, this is from the right. Someone from the right saying this. What we are expecting is the quote, perfect storm disrupting our energy supply and creating an extreme stress test for the power grid that is being pushed to the limits. Yet, there is one source of energy that is thankfully keeping us from mass power outages and keeping the lights on. It's coal. So, quote, here are the daily numbers during the big freeze in the 15-state Midwestern region. Coal is producing roughly 41,000 megawatts. 41,000 megawatts. Natural gas is providing 22,000 megawatts. Wind and solar are roughly 3,000, or about 4% of the power. This points to the foolishness of the states requiring 30, 40, or 50% of their power to come from wind and solar. Even with normal weather patterns, when solar and wind are working, coal-fired plants are almost always necessary as a backup for when the wind isn't blowing or when the sun isn't shining. Stephen Moore, The Hill. I think I'll read one more from this from this area. If you want to go to the next link, buddy. And the next link comes from the Wall Street Journal, still on the right. The Wall Street Journal is not on the right that I know of, but the opinion or the writer is on the right. So from what I understand. So it's from the editorial board, which I guess they do. Wall Street Journal does have conservative people on their editorial board, their op-ed board. So, quote, blame a perfect storm of bad government policies, timing, and weather. Coal and nuclear are the most reliable sources of power. But competition from heavily subsidized wind power and inexpensive natural gas, combined with stricter emissions regulation, has caused coal's share of Texas's electricity to plunge by more than half in a decade to 18%. California's progressives long ago banished coal, but a heat wave last summer strained the state power grid as wind flagged and solar ebbed in the evenings. After imposing rolling blackouts, grid regulators resorted to importing coal power from Utah and running diesel emergency generators. All right. So essentially what the right is blaming, because everyone's looking for fucking someone to blame.
Yep,
So the right has blamed that we're forced to have renewable energy as part of our energy grid. And essentially because all those went down, wind turbines went down apparently, and gas lines froze up, and solar definitely is not working when it's not sunny outside. And so they said, well, if we had one more, two more, or 10%, if we didn't have the solar or the wind, we would have had another factory or several, whatever, 18% more coal that would be running. and we may have not had this as an issue. Now,
Mhm.
conversely, let's look at the left here. And so we'll look at the left. The left argues investments in renewable energy and modernizing the country's grid. So they're urging for more renewable energy and modernizing this country's grid here. So, quote, and this comes from the War Post, the Washington Post here.
The War Post.
War Post, Washington Post, for my folks out there in the northeast area of America. Quote, in the name of deregulation and free markets, critics say, Texas has created an electric grid that puts an emphasis on cheap prices over reliable service. The temporary train wreck of that market Monday and Tuesday has seen the wholesale price of electricity in Houston go from $22 a megawatt hour to about $9,000
Wow.
a megawatt hour. One utility company, Gritty, which sells power at wholesale rates to retail customers without locking in a price in advance, told its patrons Tuesday to find another provider before they get soaked with tremendous bills. Quote, some turbines did in fact freeze, though Greenland and other northern outposts are able to keep theirs going through the winter. But wind accounts for just 10% of the power in Texas that was generated during the winter. And the loss of power to the grid caused by shutdowns of thermal power plants, primarily those relying on natural gas, dwarfed the dent caused by frozen wind turbines by a factor of 5 or 6. The immediate question facing Texas power sector is whether its participants are willing to pay for the sort of winterization measures that are common in further north, even for a once-in-a-decade spell of weather. That's from the Washington Post. Basically saying, I mean, what we need to do is, what we should have done is paid for this winterization that would happen once in every 10 years or something. And the people at ERCOT were saying, listen, it's once in a fucking blue moon when this fucking happens. It's never going to happen in our lifetime. And so fuck it, right? I guess that's what they're saying. So let's go to this next one, and it'll be our last one from the Texas Tribune here. Aaron Douglas and Ross Ramsey. This is a shorter one. Wind turbines, like natural gas plants, can be winterized or modified to operate during very low temperatures. Experts say that many of Texas power generators have not made those investments necessary to prevent disruptions to equipment since the state does not regularly experience extreme weather storms. That makes sense, I suppose. Heather Zykal, CEO of the industry group, the American Clean Power Association, said opponents of renewable energy were trying to distract from the failures elsewhere in the system and slow the, quote, transition to a clean energy future, end quotes. It is disgraceful to see the longtime antagonists of clean power who attack it whether it is raining, snowing, or the sun is shining, engaging in a politically opportunistic charade, misleading Americans to promote an agenda that has nothing to do with restoring power to Texas communities, she said. Now, I get the whole renewable energy things. I love renewable energy. I mean, I'm a big fan of solar. I love that you can literally take power or harness the power of the sun and charge things and batteries. I love that idea. I've always loved that idea. I'm absolutely for it. I guess the people that are against renewable energies just know that they're called unreliable for a reason. You know, we just can't go to 100% solar, but we can split it up. So let's say we go 50% solar. But you know, what I wanted to get is that the right will say things like, "Oh, it's way too fucking expensive, way too goddamn expensive. We're not going to be able to afford that. Nonetheless, it's unreliable energy. We're just not going to do that." But you know, we get that same argument from the left when it comes, and it's not the same exact argument, but hear me out. When it comes to nuclear power plants, nuclear is probably the most cleanest energy source we can get, and we can do it. It'll still run in every condition. It's very reliable, but because of events like Fukushima and Chernobyl, people are afraid of these meltdowns, the radiation, and people growing up with 3 eyeballs. You know, that's what they're worried about. But they're looking into it as if, well, yeah, that's old ass technology. Fukushima, fucking Chernobyl. These were ancient techniques. And by now, I mean, we've got lots of nuclear in America already, but we can see none of that's been compromised. And with the technology that's always growing, we're able to contain it a lot better. And it's the waste. That's what it is. The waste is something that will last, what they say, like 2,000 year half-life in this stuff. So it has to sit around for a very, very long time before it's valued inert. But they'll say, oh, yeah, well, nuclear will do those kind of things. So it's the same type of, I wouldn't say propaganda, but same types of concerns that people that are against nuclear versus people that are against renewables in the first place. I wanted to read some more on the right here. So I'll read more on the right here. And this one will come from Forbes magazine by a man called Robert Bryce. Many argue that the massive blast of Siberia-like cold that is wreaking havoc across North America is proving that if we humans want to keep surviving frigid winters, we are going to have to keep burning natural gas, lots of it for decades to come. That cold reality contradicts the electrify everything scenario that's being promoted by climate change activists, politicians, and academics. They claim to avert the possibility of catastrophic climate change, we must stop burning hydrocarbons. But attempting to electrify everything would concentrate our energy risks on an electricity grid that is already breaking under the surge in demand caused by crazy cold weather. Now, they want everything to go to electric. Now, right now, it's probably not a good time for everything to go to electric. It should probably start, we should start definitely investing in it and going. But all that stuff is that you're getting your power to charge your stuff is still coming from burning something. Yeah. Burning carbon-based oil. And Biden axed the Keystone Pipeline, which didn't stop the oil from coming. It just stopped using the pipeline, and which meant we had diesel trucks hauling that stuff. So potentially even more pollution happened than it just flowing across, which apparently Canada wasn't too keen on the pipeline being taken down. But to continue with Forbes here, thanks to an excellent geology, a century of gas production, and a fully developed transmission and distribution grid, the domestic natural gas sector can deliver surges of the fuel that are in fact life-saving. That is due in part to the fact that we can store vast amounts of gas and only tiny quantities of electricity. In short, our electric grid cannot deliver the massive amounts of energy needed during the winter to keep us from freezing to death. That means we need to keep burning natural gas. And of course, people are against fracking because it's making the tap water flammable, supposedly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't looked into it. I'm not going to claim whether it's true or not. But I've seen the videos of the farmers taking a fucking mason jar full of their tap water and saying it doesn't look clean. You can't just run that through a fucking zero water filter and it's going to be good. I'll read one last one here from the New Republic. This is on the left. We'll end it with the left here. The real message of this week's episode in Texas is not that renewable power is inherently unreliable, nor is it that wind can just pull all the weight of a grid. It can't. The message is that a system that is supposed to be the tip of the spear of decarbonization is buckling under the weight of stress that will soon look mild as we see ever greater changes in the weather thanks to global warming. Katie Arnoff, The New Republic. So what are your thoughts? Give me a call. David, you've experienced the rolling blackouts, the no water.
Yeah, man.
How do you feel about the response from Texas, ERCOT? What are your thoughts, man?
Man, so the hard thing about all this is nobody is gonna take the blame. You know what I mean? Like nobody's gonna say,
"Oh
"Yep,
yeah, it was
we're
my
the ones
fault."
Yeah, nobody's gonna say we're the ones that fucked up ERCOT or Ted Cruz or nobody's gonna take the blame, man. And the frustrating part is that we're the ones who are suffering. Like the American people, the people in Texas are the ones who are suffering. Like I said, before we fucking started the show, man, I'm like, I got my t-shirt on, I got my warm long sleeve, and then I got my hoodie, got my beanie, I got 3 pants on, and I'm still fucking cold in my apartment, man. And it's like, it sucks and it does piss me off because it's like this is what our tax dollars are supposed to do. Like our tax dollars are supposed to keep you in check, or they're funding you to prevent this kind of stuff from happening. You know what I mean? Like our tax dollars, the shit that we're putting into the economy, the things that we're voting for, everything is supposed to be for the benefit of the people in Texas, the benefit of the people in Austin. And what this is showing is that you're not looking out for our best interest. Like apparently I was reading an article the other day that like multiple people in the ERCOT in charge of Texas aren't even from Texas. They're from Canada and from Michigan and all these other places. So it's like, how are you having people who are not from Texas deciding what's going on in Texas, what we need in Texas, what we need in our city, in our state? So the frustrating part is knowing that you're suffering and you can't bitch to anybody because everybody's going to pass the buck. But I'm also hoping that Texas, being one of those states who are very much like, yo, like somebody's going to fucking pay for this. I hope that we find the person who was in charge of all this, making sure that our water and our lights were supposed to go off, and we find who that person is and hold them accountable.
Yeah, and like you said, no one is going to take responsibility, and
Mm-mm.
right now we'll talk about Ted Cruz in a minute. But yeah, there are people. I heard something about Beto O'Rourke did raising money, and he's out there fucking giving out blankets. People are doing good out there. I'm constantly all weekend long. I've seen my friends on Facebook, telling everybody where things are. There's a pallet
Yeah.
of food dropped off back there, and I thought about that for a second. I go, well, okay, that's good for the people that have internet and like electricity to check their phones and see that. But the people that actually need it, like the homeless, I'm hoping I'm leaving. I have faith in humanity that the people that thought they needed it looked at all the grabbed. I don't know if they grabbed any extra. People were. I imagine this whole scenario would look much like Target on Black Friday and shit when they opened the door.
Exactly.
But I don't know. I can tell you that I went to HEB 2 days ago. We just could not. We didn't have much left to eat. No meats, no eggs, no anything. We had to go to the store. You could not get any delivery of food. Everything was completely iced over. It was. I've never seen it snow like this in Texas. I've been out here 10 years. The first year I came out here, it snowed for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I didn't see snow till last year, where it snowed once for a few minutes, and then this year it snowed fucking 3 times. And it stayed on the ground for a week. It's still on the ground right now. I left, and I mean most of it's going away. But as soon as I turned over in Hard Hat's neighborhood, I mean, one guy, it looks like he still has his Christmas snow up.
Well, yo, on the real, like I'm thankful that the snow is still up, man, because without the snow being up, we wouldn't have any drinking water, we wouldn't have any toilet water, we wouldn't have any bathing water. Like we legit have no water at all
Did you say
to
baby
get
water?
bathing.
Bathing water.
Yeah,
I did see somebody post up on the Nextdoor app they needed baby water.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, dude. I mean, Target has I mean, we were there
Is that a
earlier
thing?
today. Target
Baby
has
water?
stuff. Yeah,
Water for
like
babies?
yeah, like they have like infant water and shit like that, like with nutrients and all that stuff that babies need.
Oh,
Um,
sure. That wouldn't.
Well, I think it's pretty much distilled water.
Yeah,
It
pretty
might have a few
much.
other things in it, but like if you're gonna mix your like powder formula with it,
Yeah.
it's always recommended to use like distilled.
I
Yeah.
mean, it makes sense. I don't know about distilled. Distilled water is not great for you. It's not. People
But the
say it's
thing,
good for you, right? But it leaches chemicals. It leaches minerals from you.
Oh.
Mhm. But yeah, man, like
Mhm.
so I'm glad that the snow is still around because if not, we wouldn't have anything because we have no water. We literally have no water in my place, in my complex right now. Like no one has water. So if it wasn't for the snow, we wouldn't have anything to fucking get that shit from.
We scooped up snow and melted it. We boiled it and then ran it through Brita filters. And
Hmm.
I haven't drinking any of it, but my girlfriend says it tastes like shit. I mean, it tastes like boiled water. Like, are
Hmm.
you having water that tastes all right?
I mean, we have the Alexa filter from Infowars, so
Is that what it's
it's been
called?
doing the Alexa water filter. Yeah.
How many stage of
So
filtration does it do?
I'm not sure, but it's been giving us good water.
It's
I mean,
crap.
I've been using it. I've been using it to make coffee today.
And well, it hasn't turned
Um,
any of your frogs gay, so it must be doing something right.
nah, you know what I mean. But today I got to use to roast a little bit of coffee because I haven't been able to do anything. So I just felt like like I just felt very, like I said, dude, I love to work. I love to edit. I love to do what I do. And so it was frustrating not doing any of that. So today I felt like, okay, at least if I roast some coffee, I feel like I'm doing something because we've been drinking nothing but coffee the last few days, man. Like I'm making coffee, then we're drinking whiskey and bourbon, and you know what I mean? We're just like, there's nothing to do, dude. And like I said, I'm trying to be mindful of the energy we're using. So I'm not editing and I'm not doing my job. But I just feel like, again, to the question you posed in the beginning was, how do I feel? I feel frustrated because I feel like at the end of the day, the people in Texas aren't going to be heard. I feel like I said they're just going to continue to pass the buck and nobody's going to take responsibility. And I wish we had more people like that in our government. People who were willing to take responsibility and say, not only am I going to take the blame, but I'm also going to take the reward of the success that when I bring the change. You know what I mean?
Well, that you make a solid argument, and I wanted to sort of segue into this next article. Now, you may have to open this, Brandon, with Brave browser, um,
Brave
because
browser, that's what it was called.
yeah, the
You
Brave
son of a
browser,
bitch.
man, yeah.
Yeah.
But well, we're gonna read this article from the New York Times here, and it talks about one of my old favorite senators, but I'll get into my thoughts here in a second. But let's read this from the New York Times. Ted Cruz's Cancun trip, family texts detail his political blunder. The Texas senator faced
What?
fierce blowback for fleeing his state as a disaster unfolded. I don't know if he fled to his state. Um, I guess in a way he did. But text messages sent by his wife revealed a hastily planned trip away from their, quote, freezing family home. Text messages sent by his wife. At one point, I'm old enough to remember that there was a laptop that was reported from the New York Post to Twitter, and that Twitter
Hmm.
suspended this account over it being hacked materials.
Yep.
And we have, when it comes to a Republican such as Donald Trump or his wife talking about something, someone's recording them, and then they send it to the fucking media, and the media's like, "Fuck yeah," and they'll probably never see any consequences for leaking out things that you probably shouldn't. It's none of your goddamn business. But this whole like text message thing, and maybe we'll get into it in a second, but this comes from a couple of betas called Shane and Nicholas from the New York Times. I just assume they are because they had to write this together, which I don't know if that means anything. I'm just being a dick. They write, like millions of his constituents across Texas, Senator Ted Cruz had a frigid home without electricity this week amid the state's power crisis. But unlike most, Mr. Cruz got out, fleeing Houston and hopping on a Wednesday afternoon flight to Cancun with his family for a respite at a luxury resort. Photos of Mr. Cruz and his wife, Heidi, boarding the flight ricocheted quickly across social media and left both his political allies and rivals aghast at a tropical trip as a disaster unfolded at home. The blowback only intensified as Mr. Cruz, a Republican, released a statement stating that he had flown to Mexico to, quote, be a good dad, end quote, and accompany his daughters and their friends. He noted he was flying back Thursday afternoon, though he did not disclose how long he had originally intended to stay, which I think we have a link to that later. We'll get into that. Text messages sent from Miss Cruz to friends and
What?
Houston neighbors on Wednesday revealed a hastily planned trip. Their house was freezing, quote unquote, as Miss Cruz put it. And she proposed a getaway until Sunday. Mrs. Cruz invited others to join them at the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun, where they had stayed many times, noting the room's price this week, $309, and it's good security. The text messages were provided to the New York Times and confirmed by a second person on the thread who declined to be identified because of the private nature of the text.
Wow. Wow.
And by the way, I should note that Texas is a single-party consent state, so this is not illegal. It's not hacked materials to send a text message to the New York Post or New York Times. Not to say it's not a dick move.
Yeah.
And you probably... I don't know. You probably are up and you're probably rich if you live in the same neighborhood as Ted Cruz. So
yeah,
I guess you don't have to worry about it. But it sounds like they were probably like, hey, who wants to join us at the fucking Ritz-Carlton in Cancun? I don't know if they're going to pay for it or not. But it looks like you may have lost a good neighbor friend because I'm sure those are great neighbors, good people. I don't know. Fuck. For more than 12 hours... After the airport departure photos first emerged, Mr. Cruz's office declined to comment on his whereabouts. The Houston police confirmed that the senator's office had sought their assistance for his airport trip on Wednesday, and eventually Mr. Cruz was spotted wheeling his suitcase in Mexico on Thursday as he returned to the state he represents in the Senate. As the Cruzes were away... I wanted to make as the Cruzes were cruising, millions of Texans were still without electricity. Many had no running water, and the icy air that swept into the state was so severe that the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, had been activated to send supplies, including generators. Some searched neighborhoods for discarded falling trees to burn for warmth. That's a very hard trees to burn. Fresh trees that have fallen. They pop a lot. Pop. What's happening in Texas is unacceptable, Mr. Cruz told a television crew at the Cancun airport. He was wearing a Texas state flag mask and a short-sleeve polo shirt tucked into his jeans. Classy fucking look right there, I tell you what. The temperature in Cancun was above 80 degrees Fahrenheit on Thursday, and it was in the 30s in Houston. 80 degrees right now. Sounds really good.
Yeah, for real.
I see why he wanted to go. I mean, 80 degrees. After landing back in the United States, Mr. Cruz offered a new statement with a different tone from earlier in the day when he had tried to explain the vacation without regrets and left the impression that it might have always been a one-day trip for him. Speaking to reporters after his arrival home, he conceded that the trip was obviously a mistake, that he had begun having second thoughts as soon as he boarded the plane in Mexico. Sure you did, Ted Cruz. I mean, as soon as he was saying this, as soon as I got on that plane, I was having second thoughts, man. It's like, yeah, sure you were, bro.
I feel like he was just because he was like, fuck, man, I know if somebody sees me,
well,
they're
there's
gonna
no
take
doubt
a picture and
there's no doubt that when he took off, like he has to know the optics of this, right? He has to know
exactly.
that we're freezing our nuts off. It's single digits here in Texas, and you took off. Well, now I don't know what you could have done here. I mean, nothing that you couldn't done from the safety of your own home anyways, like through the internet or through the phone. But you took off, and that doesn't look good here. He had said the plan had been to stay through the weekend with the family, framing the decision as a parent's attempt to placate his two daughters, ages 10 and 12, after a tough week. On the one hand, all of us who are parents have a responsibility to take care of our kids, take care of our families, Mr. Cruz said. But I also have the responsibility that I take very seriously for fighting for the state of Texas. Well, don't say fighting. That's incitement, bro. Take it easy. As it became a bigger and bigger firestorm, it became all the more compelling that I needed to come back, he added. Mr. Cruz critics quickly circulated hashtags mocking his trip, hashtag Flying Ted, hashtag Fled Cruz was among them. Some Democratic groups sought to fundraise off the episode, and the state Democratic Party renewed its calls for Mr. Cruz's resignation. Now, a lot of my friends that I've seen on the Facebooks, when there are people talking shit about Cruz, on the comments, you'll see that, the wonderful AOC raised $2 million, which great, fucking great. And it made me wonder, when did she do that? Like, did she start that right away? No, finds out that as soon as she heard about Ted Cruz fucking being gone, This was a great opportunity. The Democrats are so good at this, and this is something that Republicans need to understand already. That the Democrats will take advantage of a crisis. They're going to take advantage of any situation that's going to make them look good. And what better way to make yourself, what easier way to make yourself look better than to just start raising money that Ted Cruz should have been doing in the first place? The money that they raised, good. I love it. But that doesn't help anybody yesterday. It didn't help anybody that day that they raised $2 million. It didn't help anybody yet. That money's going to go to the people afterwards, and it may pay for those people's electric bills, those $9,000 an hour bills. I mean, people are going to see $20,000 bills, and there's nothing they can do about it. Hopefully that the state, what I think that what they should do is ERCOT should pay for it. Like at work, the government shuts down the economy, shuts down everything, and they paid us for it, which is good. That's what they should do. That's what should happen. If your job, I believe at my job, our electricity was out. Generously, she didn't have to do this, but our boss said, while we're out this week, we're going to get paid. Because there was no way we were going to be able to work anyways, right? The electricity is out, and there was talk about flooded or burst pipes. So, let's continue on here. Quote,
with what you're saying, it's not fair, right? Because this is this will maybe go into another rant, even just talking about being fair, but it's not fair for the American people to be paying $9, $10, $3, $4,000 bills when the city and the county in your town should have been prepared for this. Like, we shouldn't be paying for other people's mistakes and for other people who were not prepared for us. Again, that's what we pay you for. This is what our tax dollars should be going to, is you preparing us for these kinds of things.
Yeah, but
and
what
just
happens?
because you that's the thing. Just because you fail to prepare for it.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Just because you fail to prepare for this, because you fail to do your job, why is it fair for us to pay for it? You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, there's been multiple times when we've had, I've worked for companies where they do something wrong and they ask the customer to pay for the wrong that they've done. And I have to interject and say, no, if you did wrong, it's not up to the customer to pay for it because they were just doing what you said to do. So for us as the American people, we pay into ERCOT, whatever fucking energy you pay into, but you pay your electric bill, your gas bill, all these bills, so that they can have the money to pay the people to keep us from going through anything like this. So because you failed to execute in your job, that should not hurt the American people.
Yeah, and I don't like this talk like, we shouldn't have to pay you for your mistakes or whatever. And I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, we shouldn't be paying for mistakes, but let's get into the fact that they did run out of energy, and like ignoring who to blame at the moment. What do we do to get this back up? Or even better yet, what do we do in the future? And as we heard from the left, is they want more of this unreliable energy.
Exactly.
Which I don't know how that solves anything. I mean, I'm all for solar. I'm all for these things. Why can't we have all of it and admit that nuclear? I mean, I don't really even know if nuclear is going to be the greatest, but I know that some of the most genius people among us, the Elon Musks and the guy who invented 5-hour energy drink, I mean, they're for the nuclear option. They say it's the cleanest energy. And the 5-hour energy guy, I don't know if you've ever seen it. There's like a documentary about him. Like he is like a humanitarian, dude. Like he just made his fortune on 5-hour energy, but he does all sorts of stuff. Like he has this like bike that you would send, that you give it to people that don't have no electricity, and like you have them run it on for like an hour or two, and it gives them enough energy to run through the night, and they just have to do that. And he's like working on perfecting that. He's working on trying to harness the energy from the center of the earth, like he's up to stuff. And he's saying that nuclear energy, look into the, it's been a handful of years since I've even watched that documentary, at least over 10 years since I've seen that documentary. So look into it. Can you find out what the name of that thing is?
My nose is getting cold,
His
man.
name is
Like,
Manoj,
I
yeah.
feel
Barhargava.
Manoch.
Manoj. Man-OJ. What's the name of his documentary? It's like probably something like 5 Hour Energy, 5 Hour, like Idea Man or something like that. It's really good, and I couldn't recommend it more. And
Billions and change.
Billions and change. That sounds right. All right, so we got about 10 more minutes left before we get out of here for the day. We are going to continue on for hopefully maybe another hour. We'll see. But I want to get into. Oh no! First, can we go into this this link, because we're still talking about Ted Cruz here, and I sort of don't want to get off of it. Right now on Twitter, hashtag Cruz is a disgrace is trending. And I wanted to roll down some of this and just sort of like watch some of these videos people have made. One of them in particular from the Midas Touch, and I think it's the second one down, and it's Midas Touch. And this is hilarious. First of all, Act Blue is what the Democrats have used to raise money. Act Blue, and we talked about Act Blue when it came to BLM, and and who they when you donate to BLM and who they donate that money to, and it's to anything Democrat. It's nothing Republican. But can we get that? Yeah, he's working on it. The Midas Touch, and this is a great one. And we'll watch a video of him getting interviewed at the airport, and we'll move on from there. But I do want to just see a couple of these freaking funny videos here. And so I sometimes the left can meme. Sometimes the left can meme. Most of the time they can't.
From predictable consequences of a natural disaster.
Yeah.
Tired from an insurrection you incited against your government? Is your state suffering from predictable consequences of a natural disaster caused by your failed leadership? Then it's time for you to throw your constituents and Constitution away and escape to Cancun. Constituents underwater? You can be too on one of our reef and shipwreck snorkeling tours. Feeling homesick? Visit the Mayan ruins. No electricity, undrinkable water. It's like you never left Houston. So hurry up, flee in glee, and bask in the glow of red-hot sedition in Cancun. Midas Touch is responsible for the content of this advertising.
First of all, this is we're watching this on Twitter. I don't see a fact check here. He helped incite the insurrection at the Capitol.
Very true.
Where's the fact check there? All this stuff here, and they said, oh, you could throw your Constitution out. Like, where in Constitution does it say that a fucking politician needs to sit around while there's a natural disaster going on? This one I thought was going to be a little funnier. I mean, it had a funny tone, like this sounds like it's going to be funny. It's not, and I lied to you. It's not funny. It's ridiculous. They're still resorting to these lies. First of all, there was a trial, and a trial. Now, granted, there were. I saw this meme. It's like if I had a trial, I wish half of them were on my side or whatever, right? Half of the jury was on my side. But yeah, to say that he incited that insurrection or the erection, that is just false. And you can go ahead and say it about Donald Trump all you want. But we've talked about that, whether or not you believe what he said is true or not, and whether or not you have, it's not like you even have proof that he's wrong. You just don't want to look at the evidence. But that's not what we're here for. Let's scroll down and let's watch this ridiculous guy, reallyamerican.com. And this one's by far shared the most out of everybody. 115,000 views. Yeah, let's just take a look at it here.
Trying to take care of my family. I was trying to take care of my kids.
By now, we all know about Ted Cruz's Cancun getaway, smack in the middle of a deadly maelstrom of classic Republican failure. But what's the worst part of this weak, effeminate boy who grew a beard trying to look tough while abandoning his responsibilities and people?
Stop
the
real
man
quick.
who licked Trump's...
What's with the hate all of a sudden about this guy's beard? Like,
I know.
It doesn't look bad, but all of a sudden, I mean, he looked worse without it. First of all, he does look like a little elf. He looks like a little dweeb without a beard. Guy looks pretty fucking manlier with a beard, like as it does with most people that grow beards. But that's just one thing. You know, a lot of people that I know from a so-called facial hair club won't say that he's got a great beard at all. You know, regardless of how you feel about the guy grew a beard. It looks pretty sweet for him, you know, but we're not here to go, you know, and one thing they say is all facial hair is valid. You know, yeah, I get it. Yeah. Except for Ted Cruz's. It's just, I'm so sick of people saying that in the first place about his shitty beard. Beard's not bad.
I bet you if it was a fucking tranny with a beard, you know, like a woman who was barely growing a beard and it was like a patch, it'd be like, oh, that's more than enough, sweetie. You won the Beard Award of 2022.
Well, of course, the trans person, we don't know their politics, but I'm sure if that trans person had the same exact politics as Ted Cruz, they would criticize them.
More than likely, true.
Go ahead with that video.
Balls.
Proud to have worked hand in hand with President Trump.
While Trump called his father a murderer and his wife a dog,
Utterly amoral.
blamed his failure to lead on his daughters. I shit you not. Chubby Ted said his kids forced him to fly to Cancun. That tells you all you need to know about Trumplicans.
Stop real quick. All right, so, you know, your kids tell you want to go to Cancun, you shouldn't do it. But your kid tells you they feel like a girl, then we need to embrace them being a fucking girl then, right? Where's the line when it comes to children here? I don't know. They seem to keep changing that goal line. Go ahead.
Anyone out to save themselves.
It worked.
Remember Ted Cruz and Titanic?
Please, I'm all she has in the world.
That's pretty much it. But there's one more thing about Ted. He not only abandoned his people, his family, his state, his responsibilities, he flew to Cancun and left behind his poodle, Snowflake. Who abandons their dog?
How would I look walking a dog?
A dog is a man's best friend, but this guy, not a friend or a man.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Why don't you talk to the president the way you talk to my brother? You afraid of him? Goddamn right. Who's with me?
Winning. Trying to take care of my family. I was trying to take care of my...
Like the barrage of fucking movie clips at the very end right there is absolutely ridiculous. Who the fuck put that together? And first of all, it's not a bad cut. I like that they throw all those jumps in there, but who the fuck's got the time to go grab that one little tiny clip from Orange is Black, or we got to get that one, you're goddamn right, from Breaking Bad. It's like somebody had to pull that together. And I guess all I can really criticize is that they shit on his beard and said that you can't listen to your children or something, I guess, right? Or you can't blame your children. Well, my child wants to be a woman. All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on. So, but yeah, how does that make you feel out there? I mean, and I'll tell you how I feel. Maybe I missed that altogether, but Ted Cruz, as much as I like him as a politician, which is not much. I mean, I don't like politicians all that much, but Ted Cruz seems to be more, and definitely not more honest than anybody, but he's a better speaker. He seems to know the law. Well, hopefully he knows the law because he's a lawyer. But what I mean is that I don't see him, you know, after today, he did contradict himself a lot. Like, I definitely see that when he got caught initially, he had said what anybody would have said getting caught. He said, well, I know, I was just going there to escort them, and I was coming right back, right? Wink, bing, I'm out of here, right? And that's the thing about these people on the other side. They could have just let him go, right? They could have let him go, and then fucking... boom, hit him when he got home, knowing that he would have come. Like, you played your hand much too quickly, and he was able to have plausible deniability and go, well, yeah, I mean, fuck, man. But then he eventually, like an honest, I guess, person, he may or may not be, I don't know, but he did admit. He never had to not admit that he was going to stay there longer. He could have just kept playing that card. Oh, yeah, I was just going to drop off my kids, you know, get back to the great state of Texas, which I serve, which he didn't do. I mean, he came back the very next day, and he's probably like, God damn it, I got caught, right?
Yep.
Well, it's okay.
Yeah, hey. I checked and I was like, oh shit, 10:15. Well, we missed it.
Well, we're still on the air. It don't matter.
Hey.
Sorry, Charles. Sorry, Doug.
Hey, what do we have to have the end?
I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody's watching us on public access anyways.
Yeah, but hey, it's honest mistake, guys.
Honest mistake.
Everyone.
You know, that's what happens when I get into a rant, man. We just
And it was semi good. I was getting drawn into it. You're holding my attention.
I
Well,
agree.
yeah. Well, Ted Cruz should not have done that, or not have got caught, rather. You know, like, honestly, what could he have done? You know, I guess he could have. And, you know, there was where was it? Did I read somewhere? Let me see if I can find it.
Well, and even think about it, man. It's
I
crazy
know.
how they go that deep with, again, it's only one side. Like, I'm sure nobody got mad, right? No, like, not many people were calling out Gavin Newsom when he was having his big feast, right? He was eating out. Nobody called out any of these, you know, what's her name from Chicago, right?
Lori
Fucking
Lightfoot.
yeah, Lori
Beetlejuice.
Lightfoot. Yeah, Beetlejuice from when she was getting there. Nope, nobody's calling them out.
Right.
But once it's somebody from the right, they're like they're just salivating at the mouth, waiting to attack, and that's kind of dangerous because again, it shows your bias, and that's what we're saying. It's okay to have a bias, just be honest about it. You know what I mean? Like we're cool with like we think Ted Cruz is a good guy when he is agreeing with what we say, but once you do step out of line and you fuck up, hey, we're gonna call you out. You know what I mean?
Right. And one thing I wanted to bring up, yeah, and here it is. Brian Tyler Cohen on Twitter. He's a check mark. He goes, the senator from Texas saw a crisis and escaped to the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun. I just hate how this is reported already. Like, he saw a crisis and bailed.
Yeah, that was his
what
motive.
is that, like, what is, like, yeah, that was his motive. Oh, yeah, as soon as I see this crisis, I'm taking off. Meanwhile, a congresswoman from New York, whom that Texas senator regularly uses as a punching bag, just raised $1 million for Texans. One party works for you, the other works for themselves. Like, this is what I'm talking about, where AOC, I mean, at no point does she say, she says, actually, meanwhile, it says, the senator from Texas saw a crisis, took off. Meanwhile, a congresswoman from New York raised him. That's not how it happened. This is misleading. I don't see a disputed fact here, but she did not do this until after they caught Ted Cruz, and they were like, all right, you guys, let's raise some money. And you know what? It was probably way easy to raise money because they probably got a couple people that they knew that had a lot of money, donated a bunch of fucking money so that they can make it look like they did something amazing here, which, by the way, doesn't help anybody right now.
They got 4 of the rich friends. Each one donated $250,000, and it's like, look, we donated $1 million in one day.
Now,
wow.
look, we don't know if that's the case. All right, let's not say that. I want to be as fair as possible, but to be fair is to look at this and go, Ted Cruz fucked up, shouldn't have gone, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez took advantage of a situation she knew would make her look good if she did. Guess what? If we let, and this is probably all the more reason why they didn't let Ted Cruz go to Cancun. First of all, they knew if they called him out, he'd have to bail back, right? There's no way we're going to let this fucker have a fucking Cancun trip. So they made sure to do that. And then second, they made sure to take advantage of that by raising money to make him look bad. Now, Ted Cruz, what he needs to do is go raise a ton of fucking money and show him he actually cares. Because right now, as far as this guy's concerned, he thinks that the Democrat Party works for you. He thinks that Republicans only work for themselves.
Now, what he needs to fucking do is get water going and get lights on and be like, hey, this is what I did. I made everyone get back to work.
But do you think that AOC went to Texas and stayed in her home to do this little tweet to say donate to this?
No.
Like, Ted Cruz could have done that, but he didn't. That's the thing, right? He didn't do anything. Like, he could have shared a post of a donation page. He could have done that. That's like the least.
Well, this is the other thing. This is the other thing. Which one of us wouldn't do what Ted Cruz did if we had the option?
See, here's the thing. Like, I saw people say that, right? I saw. We got a phone call. Where the fuck are these people calling during the show when we're on Channel 10? Hey, caller, you're on the air. What's up? Caller, you're on the air.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. What's up?
All right, copy that. Sorry.
No worries.
Hey, I was just wondering if y'all were worried about like what our tax dollars are being spent on. What about the Department of Energy and what they said. Have you heard about that?
Well, why don't you go ahead and tell us? I'm to understand that prices went as high as $9,000 a megawatt hour or some shit. So, tell me more.
Well, I'm just gonna read direct from Don Salazar. Y'all know who that is?
Did you say Todd and Don?
Don Salazar.
Oh,
He's,
Don Salazar. Yeah.
Don Salazar. Yeah.
All right. So check this out. This is what he wrote. An emergency order from the Biden administration's Department of Energy shows that Texas Energy Grid operated ERCOT was instructed to stay within green energy standards by purchasing energy from outside the state at a higher cost, throttling power output throughout the state ahead of the catastrophic polar vortex. So going into effect Sunday, February 14th, Emergency Order 202-21-1 shows the Energy Department was aware of Texas Governor Greg Abbott's statewide disaster declaration and that ERCOT was readying gas utilities in preparation for a demand surge. The order shows Acting Energy Secretary David, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, Huazina did not waive environmental restrictions to allow for maximum energy output. Instead, ordering ERCOT to utilize all resources in order to stay within acceptable emission standards, including purchasing energy from outside the state.
Oh, interesting.
Moreover,
so the reason why they had to do that because we have these regulations that keep it so that we can't go exceed a certain carbon level or something, right? We can't emit.
Exactly.
So what you're arguing, saying that it's in fact because we have to go through renewable stuff and these regulations for that, that this is what got us. So you're on the right side of not the literal right, but the aisle right of this situation, right?
I'm just trying to get to the truth of it all. I don't really care what side it's on, but
thank you.
I mean, like if this was Trump, I would be like, okay, what's going on? You know, like but yeah, basically, go ahead.
No, well, I was going to mention. Sorry to cut you off. Was Biden did finally? I don't know how long it took him to finally start sending out FEMA to hand out blankets and generators or whatever. But as far as I was able to see, it took it till just the other day, while we were already experiencing these for blackouts for several days already. So I think it was like Wednesday.
Yep.
Yeah, to me that just seems like it's all planned to like hinder us. It's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, that slightly crossed my mind too. I was like, man, this is like, how somebody's letting this happen in order to cause a stir somewhere and a rift between politics and shit, people.
Well, I mean, I would even go to the extreme, and if I am allowed to go to the extreme.
Of course, you go to the extreme.
Well, look at what China has done in weather modification and other things like that. Like how, what? I'm just saying.
Okay, go ahead.
Like, is there a possibility where this is a little bit more than just a coincidence, or this is more than just bad weather? Like, think about it. Texas was the only state that was really going against a lot of people when it came to Trump and when it came to, fighting the impeachment and all that. Now, I'm just being a little crazy right now and just saying, how much of this is weather modification and that the people don't know, right? Like, people think it's crazy to talk about it, but it's been around for the last 10, 30, 40, 50, 60 years.
The whole U.S. being where they seeded the clouds enough that made snow for 7 days.
Well, China has said that I think by 2025 that they will be able to do that to the entire world.
Oh, geez. I don't know what to believe about that, but hey, caller, thanks for calling. I mean, is there anything else you'd like to bring up? Did you listen to the whole show today?
Yeah, I've been listening to the whole show. No, I just wanted to talk to y'all about that in particular. I tried to send y'all a link, but it got all jumbled with a bunch of crazy stuff tagged at the end.
Are you? No, I got it though.
Are you Atlas?
Yeah, no, it's I'm gonna assume Chris. Yeah, he sent a link. I'll share it with you guys after the show.
Let me ask you another question here. Now, we were just talking about Ted Cruz. What are your thoughts on Ted Cruz bailing out? Do you think he could have done more? Should he have just stayed? What are your thoughts on what happened with Ted Cruz?
I think it's interesting. Like, I've seen friends on both sides, like, posting about it, you know, like, and talking bad about him and stuff. And, like, me personally, like, I'm like, I want to go to Cancun. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds great. 80 degrees.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess my opinion is probably, like, in line with y'all, is just where, like, this is just being used by the left as, like, a opportunity to make him look bad, even though, like, you know, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do in this situation? Like, I got a vehicle that can drive in this stuff, and I've been driving, but, like, if I was running the state, I wouldn't be trying to drive all over the place and, like, you know, hook up people's electrical lines and do jobs. I mean, people act like Ted Cruz, like, personally went and, like, cut everybody's power off individually, it seems. And I'm just like, what are y'all doing? Like, we should focus on the root of the problem, which is not Ted Cruz at all. And it seems to me that problem is that we aren't allowed to generate enough electricity with these fossil fuels in order to keep us alive in these crazy storms that may or may not be weather modification. But to move on from that, point is that these storms, you know, like, they come through, and, like, these freak things that happen, we cannot generate enough electricity because of those regulations.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're in place there.
Yeah, and there's people that were, I think I saw that frozen turbine picture everywhere for people that were on the right, and how people were on the left were just trying to debunk that, oh, this picture's from fucking Switzerland in 2013 or something.
Are y'all talking about where they're trying to de-ice it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that picture a long time ago, and so that picture may not be legit. But point is there, if you go look at the wind turbines in Antarctica, those things break down all the time because of the cold.
Right, and you know, they're the same people I was talking to are. I mean, I've been keeping out. I hate having these political discussions with people online, because, you know, sometimes you'll start going on there and start talking, then you probably wait for the response. You sit there and you fucking try to write yours out, and you want to make sure all the grammar's right so that nobody fucking gives you a fucking your with an asterisk or whatever. But one thing I saw a lot was Ted Cruz should have been there. And one picture that really stood out, was really funny to me, and I sent it to the boys, was what liberals think Ted Cruz should be doing. And it's just a stock photo of an electrician up in the fucking on the wires, and it's just superimposed with Ted Cruz face on there, saying, you know, what do you think he's going to be doing? But then meanwhile, people are posting up this Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez thing where she's raised $2 million. I mean, of course, like, this is just so crazy to me that they think, oh, AOC, obviously they think that she's been doing this all week, but she opened it up the day that Ted Cruz's news came out. I mean, there's no doubt that they are, and the same thing goes with, like, the whole Senate fucking trial, where for 16 hours straight it was all just emotions and how I felt when I was in that building, and playing all these fucking videos out of context and shit. And not to mention how many times that we still had to hear. Well, first of all, we had to hear that they said Donald Trump's never disavowed white supremacy. They said that at a trial, and they even played a fucking clip of him saying there's very fine people on both sides, and they cut it right after that. They don't even finish. In the same breath, he'll say, but not the neo-Nazis, they should be condemned completely. They cut that fucking out, and then the audacity of the right side, or Trump side, going and playing those clips and then showing them in context, showing him actually saying peaceful protest, hearing him say, not this person, I disavow that. Like, and then them going, oh, but then the fucking Republicans fucking threw a fucking 13-minute video of Democrats saying, fight like hell, for 13 fucking minutes out of context. They're fighting edited videos with edited videos, ignoring the fact that what they're showing is what you guys are saying he fucking did. Like, you have been saying fight like hell. Now, regardless of what the reason for it was, you led your people to believe that black people were getting killed and hunted by the cops, and it led to riots. And you were like, this is what happens. Donald Trump said some fucking things that are a lie, and it made people go crazy, and they fucking rioted. I don't blame Donald Trump for the insurrection. I don't blame Democrats for bringing up the riots in throughout the year. That being said, that whole trial was a fucking sham because all they wanted to do was make it so that anyone that voted against this impeachment is now for it. They perpetrated it. And so that they can fucking take advantage of another fucking crisis, another situation that they can impose their fucking will and make them look so much fucking better.
Well, and I just want to add, I don't even think it was an insurrection, my man. I feel like I think
it was a
that the
violent the insurrection means, and I don't know why I keep saying insurrection. Insurrection means a violent uprising against a political or political figure or government, whatever.
With a bunch of unarmed people.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. I think it was
Well, hey, some of them had flagpoles with a spear on top of it.
I think what we're gonna see is that this was a way more. We're gonna see that there's way more that they knew. What I mean by they is the left and the Democrats. I think there's more involvement with them than what we know. You know what I mean? I feel like things went the way they wanted it to go, and what we're gonna begin to see. And that's the other sucky part, man, is when you have people like Parler and all these other right-leaning alternatives being taken down by mainstream media and by all this other type of media. Like, how are we supposed to know the truth when you're attacking it? It's almost like when cells are trying to attack cancer cells and they're trying to eliminate one another. Like, how are we supposed to know the truth when you keep taking down our way to see it, right? And that's where I feel like we need to continue to stand as the American people and say, like, we need to continue to communicate with one another, not because of the agreement that we have, right? Like, I don't talk to you because you're Republican or Democrat, whatever, but I talk to you because you're a human being. I relate to you on who you are on the inside. And I think when we begin to see one another that way, that this wall that is between it, that's created by politics and government and all this other bullshit, will begin to fall. But they know how to keep that wall up very well, and they're doing that, and they're doing a good job at keeping that wall up.
That's exactly true, and that brings like a whole bunch of points, even like in relevance to what we're talking about in this whole topic here is it's a whole bunch of like smoke and mirrors and projection.
Yes.
When we're talking about what happened in Texas and the topic that we were just talking about, you notice how I brought this one thing up that literally nobody is talking about. Why is that? Well, that's because social media has banned the only outlet that's putting this out. Everybody else just won't even touch it. It's public information. Anybody can go read the order. And nobody wants to talk about it. And I think sorry.
They'd rather talk about they'd rather talk about Kim and Kanye getting a divorce.
That's number one trending on Twitter right now.
Truth of the matter.
Yeah, well, I mean, what are we gonna do? At some point, I had given up on this whole thing. Like, what are we gonna do with Biden? What are we gonna do? Like, at this point, I'm like, I wish we had Bernie at this point, but I really don't either. But like, I just want them to. Here's the thing. I just want them to. I want them to do good, but I also, on the other hand, I want them to fail at these things that we've been saying that it's going to fail. Like with all these socialist programs, let them have it, let them do it, and then we're gonna find out that it's not gonna be so good. Let them have 100% fucking renewable energy, and I want them to admit that they need this reliable source of energy. Like, but at some point,
they're never gonna admit their failures.
Exactly.
Nope.
No, you're right, and that's right. They're not gonna ever admit their failures, and they're never going to give it back.
What's going on right now? Even right now, all this is people have died in Texas because of the failures in these regulations that have prevented people to stay, warm and have running water and all the whole nine. And
go ahead, David.
This is just messed up.
Well, I just want to add, even going with, all that is one of the biggest things you see with the Marxist ideology is almost the erasing of the past in a sense of erasing their mistakes. So not only do they not want to admit their mistakes, what so many Marxists and that kind of mentality want to do is just erase history. So you neither see their mistakes or their opponent's achievements. So when you see Donald Trump or you see anybody on the right achieving anything, they want to eliminate that just as much as they want to eliminate their failures, because then they want to keep it as you can't see anything, right? So that's why there's people with the 1819 project or whatever, or the
1619 project, which
yeah
by the way, sorry
1690
to divert you from that. Something I just read on Revolver News about Black history does not start at fucking 1619. It starts like even before that, because there were Black conquistadors, like the
Well, yeah.
Spaniards. Like the Spaniards met with people that they felt were like
Yep.
strong or whatever, and they happened to be Black, and they like raised them or whatever, right? And some
Yep.
of them like turned to Catholicism.
Exact.
And they ruled together, like the Spanish conquistadors and the Black conquistadors. And
Yes.
they went and they colonized places. Like, a lot of people go, "Oh, these white fucking Europeans." You realize that the Spaniards have been colonizing forever, like to the point where
Yep.
they've wiped out Mayans. They've wiped out, matter of fact, Mexico is basically small Spain, is big Spain.
Yeah.
They basically
big
took
time.
over all that shit. And it's only the white people that seem to be the worst fucking people. And
Well,
you're never going to hear about this Black conquistador.
No, and that's the thing, like, so the thing that comes into play is now, and dude, I love exactly where you're going with this is history. Like I said, they're erasing history and they want to erase history because, again, what that does is eliminates their failures and it eliminates their opponent's success. And so now they get to thwart information the way they want to. So things like Wikipedia and Google, which they manage, they get to change whatever way they want to. They get to show you whatever information they have created. And that's what things get to get scary, because it's like, well, when do we begin to look crazy? You and I, when we're living in history. That's why, when the election and everything was going on, man, I was telling you guys, like, we're living in history, and it became so surreal because it was like, man, they want to erase this. As crazy as it sounds, they do, because they don't want Donald Trump's name to be out there. They don't want their failures to be shown. And so for them, not just with sex and gender and so many other things they want to erase, they want to erase the history of their failures. And that's a very Marxist ideology.
Yeah, absolutely. And it made me think about, I was thinking about how everybody thinks that they're like a history buff now. Like everyone thinks that they know everything about history now. And the history is in. The science is in on history. White people are the worst. And we need to make sure everybody knows that. Like, I'm so sick of racism because it hasn't ended, and it's never going to end as long as people keep saying whiteness are the cause of everything. That the reason why the Gorilla Glue girl fucking glue her hair fucking together was because of systemic racism, because she's like lives in a white world.
The Coca-Cola plant?
God, yeah. No. She the Gorilla Glue girl.
Oh yeah. I was just asking if y'all heard about the training at the Coca-Cola plant.
No, training at the
Were there,
Coca-Cola
not
plant.
yet.
Oh, where they're, I'm sure it's like woke bullshit, right? They go ahead and tell us more.
Yeah. I sort of like just learned about this today, and I'm not totally fresh up on it. But basically, what's going on is they're having like some type of sensitivity training. And they're like trying to, and in the sensitivity training, it talks about being less white. And what's crazy about this is
wait, being left white,
Less white.
less white. Oh my God.
Yeah. What's a crazy thing? Like, I'm not gonna say where I work, but I work at this place, and my boss actually got mad because they tried to make us take some sensitive training back whenever all those riots were going on, and it was kind of the same thing, And my boss got so mad at it that he just did it for all of us, and he didn't make any of us sit through it. You know, it was just, and like I was like, well, I want to see what it is, and I went and looked at it. I was like, oh yeah, this is really bad. They're trying to like make it look like white people are racist, and if like you have to be extra nice to people that are not white.
You know, and the thing is here,
you know, like,
you know, if the races were reverse, like this would be considered racist. But how is it not racist to say that? And like this is like the thing that they do. They've changed. They're so keen on changing words. First, you know, not first, but they've changed kids in cages to overflow facilities. They've changed. They've changed what hate speech means. Now, finally, they've changed the meaning of racism. Racism simply is so simple. It's so simple to understand. When you don't like somebody based on the color of their skin, their race, their culture, that's the bottom line. But they added one little tiny thing. You got to have power. Only when that person has power, and and the thing is, you know who has power in this world? White people. Boom. So they're defining racism with racism. And I'm sick of it.
Yeah, they're being
dude.
racist. And if you're thinking in terms of race all the time, that would make you a racist.
To be okay, so we pulled up something here. To be less white is to be less oppressive, be less arrogant, be less certain, be less defensive, be less ignorant, be more humble, listen, believe, break with apathy, and break with white solidarity.
What?
This looks like this is like what they would show you like when you in 1984. You ever watch that movie and they keep flashing these things in front of you and it's like to be less white, be less oppressive, be less arrogant, be less certain, be less defensive, be less ignorant, be more humble.
That's
Trust
the
your
Orwellian
government.
World that we're living in now.
Yes, absolutely. Orwellian to the max. And the funny thing is, I hear it from both sides. I mean, no one's more right than the right about this issue when they say Orwellian stuff. But then you got the left. They're throwing 1984 like right back at it as if they're right the way they read it. It's like when people read the Bible and you have Episcopalians reading it and then you have the Catholics reading it and they come up with two different fucking things. One says no preachers should be women, and they're like the Episcopal's like, yeah, here, hold my Bible, you know.
Well,
and like how they interpret the Constitution, and they're like, you know, like, shall not be infringed means infringed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. It says shall not be infringed. So any fucking gun law is infringement on our right to carry and fucking bear arms. It's so simple. But no, they're going to say, the same people that are for this gun control are the same people that will be like, Donald Trump doesn't follow the Constitution. I care for the Constitution. If you cared about the Constitution, number 2 is super important. It's probably much more important than number 1 because nothing speaks louder than a fucking gun. Do you know what I'm saying?
And I remember one of my favorite things that Dave Chappelle said was, you know, the number 2 is just in case number 1 fails or something like that. Like number 2 is a backup in a sense. And I feel like that's one of the most profound things Dave Chappelle ever really said.
Dave Chappelle, he's such a genius. Like, first of all, he just released like a 10-minute thing about how he got his money from the Chappelle show, and now you can watch it again
on Netflix,
which is great. You know, like as soon as he said that, I was like, oh man, I gotta stop watching the Chappelle show. I gotta support him because he didn't get paid enough for that, and he finally did. But he said something on that last thing that was just so profound, and it's eluding me at the moment. But if you go on Dave Chappelle's Instagram and watch it, dude, what he says there, like he says something about how he got COVID. He's like, oh yeah, haha, I got COVID, blah blah blah. You know, there's some people that are like, that's what you get when you go out there and do that. Obviously, he's not talking about people on the right. There are people on the people on the left are so fucking scared that they said that's what you get for fucking not following the COVID shit. He says that because I love him because he's neutral. I mean, he'll say it either fucking way.
I'll disagree a little bit with you on that. And that's the thing about Dave Chappelle, right? I love him. I think he's one of the definitely a king in comedy, but I think he stands too much on his blackness. And I think that's where he fails.
Well, when he talks, listen, when he talks about that, I've always felt that black people they can be treated differently in this world. They are. I mean, the thing is I don't know. Here's the thing: I don't know their experience.
And it goes all ways, though. You know, like I've lived in the hood, man.
But yeah, here's the thing: they not only do you as a white person not know their experiences, they also don't know your experiences. But
exactly.
That's the thing we need to understand. We can't go. I mean.
We
can only go. Listen. Hear me out. We can only go by statistics and patterns. You know, that's all we can really go by is patterns. And there's a point where we've gone through. Yes, we've gone through patterns where we've seen a massive spike in the population of black people that commit the crimes. Right. We're seeing that as a pattern. We're seeing that. Therefore, cops, just like weathermen who check patterns, can sort of predict what's going on next, or rather, they go, okay, this side of the town has got a lot more crime than this side of town. Therefore, we're going to patrol that side of town much more. You know, it's these patterns. But because
now you're talking about systemic racism,
right? But to say that there's some sort of systemic racism, that there needs to be more evidence for this. They're not doing it because they're black. It's just because there's more crime there. What came first, the black or the egg? You know, it's that kind of thing.
What I'm talking about is Dave Chappelle stands too much on his blackness because he's taught to be proud about his blackness. When you look at Dave Chappelle, Mos Def, Talib Kweli, and a lot of the Kanye West, a lot of the people who surround Dave Chappelle, they have this black excellence. Like black is better than everything else. And I think that's where he fails. And the reason I say that is because what unifies us, and this is where everybody is losing it, and this is where we need to come back as a country, is what the Constitution and the Bill of Rights says, that we have been given these rights by our Creator. And the thing that has happened is we do not relate to one another as created as equal because we do not believe in a creator. So the fact that we don't believe in a creator, we don't believe that we're equal. We have an evolutionary mindset in our society that says I'm better than you because I make more money, or because I'm higher in the food chain, or because I've survived, or because whatever. And so because we have an evolutionistic scientific mindset, we say I'm better than you because of this, and that. What built this country is saying our Creator created us equal, and ever since we threw the 10 commandments and everything out the door, this country has gone to shit. And the reason that's happened is because we do not relate to one another as being created as equal. We relate to one another as survival of the fittest. That's what happens when you allow science to take over and make it king.
And yeah, you make a good point. And when it comes to their blackness, there's nothing wrong with being proud of where you come from, where you have come from, where your parents have come from. There's nothing wrong with that, except if you're white. There's everything wrong with that. And
can't say white pride.
Yeah, you can have gay pride, black pride, Hispanic pride,
brown pride.
Brown pride, but God forbid you say white pride. You know, it's such a shame because there's a lot of good that whites have done, and slavery is not exclusive to the white folk. You know, it's not exclusive to the white people.
Ilhan Omar's people.
Yeah, we're also forgetting that. Sorry, we're also forgetting that we're all humans. You know, like everybody's wanting to think in terms of race instead of humanity. You know, like everybody wants to get points scored for who created this, you know, or who invented the light bulb, who you know, like who did this, that, or the other. It's like no, a human did. A human did that.
It's funny you mentioned human
underneath
too.
All that melanin in their skin. Go ahead.
It's funny that you mentioned that because there was. I see that they've changed folks to FOLX, right? To be, you know, very much inclusive, such as the language we changed Latinx, right?
Yeah,
throwing
Latinx,
that X.
Yeah.
Now I get I can get the whole Latino thing, right? The Latino, Latina, it's a gendered language, so throwing the X there means everybody. It's good, I get that, right? But then to say folks with an X, it blows my mind because folks is sort of already a uniformly. It's already an inclusive term, right? And so now what I think is going to happen as as these things progress, we're going to start seeing human X. We're going to start seeing human with an X at the end. Humex. We're going to be Humex, guys. I don't know. Maybe a little unwarranted opinion there, but I think we're at the rate that we're going, we're going to be changing words that are already inclusive to be more inclusive. Like what I mean is we had this whole thing with breastfeeding recently where you can't say breastfeed. I don't know if you can't say it, but they want to change the name to be more inclusive because obviously women aren't the only people who can breastfeed. So they have to change it to chest feeding as if men and women don't already have breasts. We have to say chest feeding. We don't say mothers. We say birthing parent or whatever, right?
Bro, so the other day I was watching this video that my wife was watching on YouTube, and the guy that was being interviewed on the video was like AMAB and AMAF, and they stand for assigned female at birth or assigned male at birth. And I'm like, what are you talking? Like, what are you talking about? What are all these? Like, you guys are creating new speech, and you're just muttering the water.
This is why, you know, when I was a kid, I was 5 up to 10. You know, I was entertained with Legos. Legos that didn't come in a set to build the Death Star. It was just a pile of Legos that you had to fucking build and then play with for hours, right? Like, I've been locked down, I wouldn't say locked down, but we've been staying in, and we've had the kid, it's just, he's a 5-year-old, doesn't go out, he doesn't have friends, and so we're left to entertain this kid, and he cannot sit down by himself for 5 fucking minutes, by him fucking self, to do a fucking puzzle. If he tries to do a puzzle, it's like, he's done it before. He goes, it's too hard, and you have to tell him, sit your ass down and just fucking do the puzzle. Go over there, play your Mario Legos, like go do this. You got to keep, he's like, I'm so fucking bored. My point is that this world that we live in, all these people that are changing, they're just so fucking bored with their lives. They need to keep changing things. They need to keep making their lives more excitable. They need to be more fucking inspired. We need to change the world we live in, and Biden was saying, these kids, they're not like us. They're not like us. Matter of fact, maybe we can pull that up because we back in the day, we had gays in bathhouses. You would have known about this, Anderson Cooper. We had gays in bath. He said this, by the way, because you would know this gay bathhouses. But he goes, we got these kids. They're up and coming. They're a lot more smarter than us, back in the day, I would have said we would have cringed over gay people. No, he was talking about biracial couples in commercials. That's what he goes. No. And he said something like, "No, we got these kids here." And sort of, if you looked into it, it's like implying, they're not like us. They like biracial couples. It's like, why did you say it that way? They're not like us. Right after talking about biracial couples in commercials, like, yeah, they're not like us. They care.
What? And I just want to say that's the other thing that's going on right now is, I'm not going on right now, not like something new. I think it's something that's been going on within our culture within the last 30 to 40 years. But is this elevation of black, brown, LGBT, like, look how much better they are than white people or than whatever kind of people. Like, it's frustrating because being Hispanic and being a person, right, what they would term me, a person of color, I don't want this privilege. It's not something I'm asking for. It's not something that I've been given. Like, you're the one shoving this down my throat. Like, you're the one shutting Latinx down my throat. You're the one shoving all this shit down my throat. I'm just trying to survive every fucking day, man. And it's frustrating because they're the ones who are demeaning humanity and elevating humanity. They're demeaning a certain type of human and they're elevating a certain type of human, which means they're the ones being racist, not us. We're the ones who are accepting everybody. They're the ones who are trying to elevate black and gays and trans and demean the white. And we're the ones who are saying everybody's accepted.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, caller, we're going to let you go, man. Last words for you. Anything else?
I enjoy your guys' show. Y'all keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Keep
you, my
listening.
man. We love you. Keep listening. Do your thing, my man.
Take care, man. Stay warm.
All right, bye.
All right, we should get out of here. We're not going to play the bonsai video. We got to get out of here. But hopefully when David has more time, we'll produce some of these ASMR bonsai videos, which would be super easy to edit, considering that it'll, like, it's ASMR. We just have to make sure it's nice and plentiful sounds, and very little editing needs to happen because we'll just be like, okay, here it is, and it just can play straight because it's just ASMR, which I forget what sense, like auditory sensory, but
something like that.
Let's conclude here. So we talked about Ted Cruz, obviously. We didn't even get into the propositions, which I guess we still have plenty of time to talk about them because it happens May 1st. All the rolling blackouts, whose side is to blame? I don't know who to fucking blame, man. Like, personally, I wasn't affected by any of this stuff, so I'm not as mad as everybody else. I'm just fortunate enough that I perhaps live in a new area, and I probably am connected to the big hospital power grid that they have out there in that area. So luckily that never went out. I mean, this morning my internet seemed a little wonky, and I was like, what a day for, the last day of all this happening, my internet goes out, but then I just reset the modem and it came right back on. So I was good by that. I don't know what I was freaking out about. But we went over all that stuff, and I really don't know who is to blame. It sounds like everybody's to blame here, and everyone needs to fucking figure it out already, ERCOT and renewable energies need to fucking figure this shit out.
Well, and that's what I mean by, like, I've kind of kept my usage of electronics to a minimum because it's like, I like, of course I want to get work done and I want to finish videos and I got clients that I got to do things for, but I'm also aware of, like, man, there's somebody down the street that may not be having electricity, and if I'm over here sucking up all the energy, like, how, like, I'm a fucking dick if I do that, you know what I mean? So I've been very, like, keen on, like I said, even the lights that you see around me right now, all these are LED lights powered by their own, like, batteries. So I've already charged them in my wife's car and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, man, like, it sucks because people aren't seeing that right now. Like, there's a lot of, what we call struggle, right? What we call struggle, but we're fucking over here, like, doing our thing. We're not struggling. It's just we're going back to things before technology and electronics, and we're having to learn to cope without those things, and they don't like it. I mean, like I said, I started reading books that I'm like, oh, cool, I need to finish reading this book, I need to finish reading that book. You know what, I should do this. I've been working out, I've been doing yoga, I've been stretching, I've been rolling, I've been doing my thing. But at the end of the day, like how you said, it's frustrating because there's somebody to blame, but nobody's gonna take the blame, and so we just got to stand here and take it up the ass.
And perhaps it's intentional the way that they do this, so that they can keep these. There's no way. There's got to be something about this. When somebody calls for unity and it just never happens. It's not the. It's not that there's people on the right that don't want unity. It seems that. Fuck, what do I know? I mean, I know that I wanted unity from day one. That's why I had somebody on the left on this show so that we can have common ground. They hated me so much that they had to fucking leave and start their own fucking podcast, even though he said he was fucking done, right? So that he can talk about his podcast, so he can talk about his politics without somebody on the right or perceived on the right, questioning him or something. And it's man, Ben Shapiro. And this is my last point before we go. Ben Shapiro read this thing, and maybe I can find it, but he says the biggest problem we have in America right now is politics. Everything is political, and it fucking is making everything shitty. You know, I'm so glad right now I've got Bonsai, and at the moment, you can't go on a Bonsai, like, group on Facebook and find anything political. It's strictly about this, but it's creeping into everything mainstream right now. I mean, our fucking videos, our movies have some sort of left wokeness. Like, matter of fact, The Executioner, I think it's The Equalizer. It used to be a fat white guy. Then Denzel Washington did him, and then now it's fucking Queen Latifah doing a TV show, right? And what they're doing, and it's fine. Like, have black people play these formerly white
roles and shit.
Roles, right? I mean, it goes both ways. I mean, I remember when fucking Woody Harrelson, man, he played fucking Bob Marley, in the Bob Marley thing. You got fucking Kate Winslet played fucking Harriet Tubman. Fucking Tom Hanks fucking played Frederick Douglass.
Bro, fucking what's his name? Robert Downey Jr. played the black dude from Tropic Thunder, man. You
Well,
know what I
that's
mean?
an actual. That's an actual thing. What I'm getting at here is that when it happens to when are we gonna see? When are we going to see a white person play a black role, a historically black role? My
Yeah.
point is here is that they're taking black people and putting them in these historically white roles, which is
Mhm,
totally fine
mhm.
by me. But I'd like to see it being proportional to because any sort of disproportionate outcome is due to racism, according to
Mhm.
Abram X. Kendi or fucking Nicole Hannah Jones, right? Like any
Mhm.
sort of like that's why if there's a disproportionate amount of black people going to jail, it's because of systemic racism, right? But they don't apply that to anything else. If there's more, trust me, black people are being represented just fine and to their percentage in media, in movies. But when they start doing this thing, you'd feel really bad, or you'd have something to say. Matter of fact, if you're not that certain person or type of person, like, oh, you're not a trans person, you can't play a trans person, according to, who was it?
Mhm.
It was ScarJo or something, right?
Yeah, I think they were trying to make her a gay person or something. She's not really gay, so they didn't want to fucking portray a gay person.
I get it, dude. Like TV and these movies are supposed to be fantasy. They're supposed to be like fake. But at some point, you're making the ladies Ghostbusters. You guys got to know, just because you're doing that doesn't mean it's going to be good. And then when it's not good and people don't like it, you can't go, oh, it's because fucking the world's sexist.
Well,
No,
it's
your
also
movie sucked probably.
yeah, it's also how you just said this is all fake. None of this is real. So that white guy who's playing an Asian just because he looks more Asian than an actual Asian guy that can act, the reason we gave him the role is because he looks like an Asian. He's a good actor. You know what I mean? Like people are trying to make everything political into people maybe making the movie. It's more just common sense. He acted better than the Asian guy we had, and he looked Asian, so we hired him. It wasn't because he was white. It was just because he acted better. You know what I mean? And we want to break everything down to race and color and gender, all of this. When at the end of the day, it's just like maybe it comes down to you're better, right? But then we don't call out the actual racism. Like Harvard saying we're not going to be accepting Asian people anymore because they score too high, and we're gonna, you know what I mean? Like they choose one thing over the other, and I think we both are the kind who say, well, if you're gonna choose one, then do all of them. Like, why just one? Like, why are you just gonna choose college, or why are you gonna choose movies, or why are you gonna choose music? Why not just choose everything? It's almost exactly what Rand Paul was saying. Like, why just give them $2,000? Give them five. Give 'em, like, if you guys are gonna be calling out this little racism, why not just call all the racism out? If we're at it,
Right. I mean, that's sort of my stance on when people say they want free healthcare. I'm like, well, why?
Mhm.
Well, healthcare is right. And I go, well, we need to eat every single day. Why isn't food, which is eating, like, is a right? Why can't we get
Mhm.
free food all the time? Like, why is it that it's sort of okay? Healthcare is a commodity, and they say it shouldn't be. Like it's somebody's work. At some point, nobody's work is going to be free to anybody.
Mhm. Mhm.
Anyways,
That's a great point. That's a great point.
And I need
Dude,
to get out of here.
I feel like you should go on that tangent because that's a really, really good point.
No.
Nobody's
We'll get
work
into a
should be
different one.
free.
Well, nobody's work should be free, especially someone who's gone to several years of medical school, like, and expect it to be fucking covered by the government, by the other people around you, and they say we live in the. Anyways, I can't get into it. I want to get home. I want to get out of here. It's supposed to be like hard freeze tonight, so I want to try to get out before it gets too hard frozen outside. Thank you guys for listening to our show. It's been another great, wonderful episode of Emergency Exit Podcast. If you guys like our content, feel free to check us out on every single platform that podcasts are hosted at. Are provided at your podcast provider? Available. Okay.
Available at your
It don't
local
matter.
podcaster.
Tell your friends, even if they don't fucking like podcasts, tell them anyways. Be sure to check out our other podcasts on our network, From the Left Hash and Rewatch Party. We just released Rewatch Party's The Bronson, right? Yeah, we did. Okay, so anyways, I'm out of here. So we will be back next week with new Bonsai, new Brew World Order. We'll finish our Brew World Order tournament next week. We'll find out who's the winner between Austin Amber and Power and Light. So for Brandon the Hard-Headed Mitchell, for exactly David Aguilar, I'm Lo saying, that's right. See you guys next week.